Mocap's hot as fuck. Must clean out my fans. Fuck off. CPU's 82 degrees. It's not great. $79. Getting there. Giddy. Change the name of the stream. Twitch activity feed, stream info, Dead Nation. All caps. Usually doesn't even fucking change it. Twitch and check. God damn. Channel. Cabbage Arse Dead Nation, yep. Nice. Cabbage Arse Dead Nation, yep. Nice. What about YouTube? View your channel. Yep, Dead Nation. These things are actually working. Sounds bad's gonna happen.
help.
I've seen this in my life. Hands getting sore, pulling the trigger. Stay back. Never seen that before either. Fuck off. Fucking shit. Yeah. Gotta get food. Check the heat of this fucking CPU. 79. We back. Fucking do what I'm eating food. You know, fucking YouTube's gonna fucking copyright strike anything. No Hazel. Let's just pray I don't get a copyright strike.
I meant to take a year off after Pulp Fiction, but then I didn't know it was gonna play for a year. I mean, you know, from the moment we won Cannes to the Academy Awards, that was over a year, and you can't do anything else during that time. That was just this all-encompassing ride that you had to kind of ride out.
Interest in Tarantino
Chest
grew,
fuel.
and the question, what would be the writer's next big picture, tormented all of Hollywood's news outlets.
People are saying, what's he doing? What's going on? You know, it's like, well, I'm writing. You know, you don't do it like that.
His opponents never missed an opportunity to mention that his previous works were co-written with Roger Avery, and that without him, Quentin couldn't produce a single line. The pressure grew when he rejected the offers to direct Speed and Men in Black. It was only by the end of 1996 that he announced that his next project would be a screen adaptation of Elmore Leonard's novel, Rum Punch.
And then I read Rum Punch around the same time I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I just kind of saw the movie in front of me.
He called me about a year before he went into production and said that he had decided to do Rum Punch.
Having bought the rights to the novel a few years back, the director nursed the idea for several years, making lots of changes to the original source. He switched the location from Florida to his familiar Los Angeles, changed the skin color and last name of the heroine, the name of the movie to Jackie Brown, and of course, spiced up the dialogue.
What's wrong with you knocking on the door like the goddamn police? You looking to get shot?
Thought you might be asleep.
You keep fucking with me, you the one gonna be asleep forever.
I didn't tell Elmore Leonard that I was placing in the film in the South Bay. Didn't tell him I was changing Jackie to black or anything. I just kind of talked to them about the piece a little bit and asked him some questions and said that I would like get back in touch with him towards the end to ask him a couple more factual questions. But I decided to just give him the script.
He made so many changes that for more than a year he was afraid to show the screenplay to the book's author. But when Elmore read it, he told Tarantino that it was the best script he had read in his entire life.
He surprised me. I thought he might be all over the place. He said, I've been afraid to call you for the last year. And I said, why? Because you've changed the title and the color of the main character? And he said, yeah. I said, well, that's all right. Do what you want. You're the filmmaker.
So we on the same page then. Yeah, I follow.
I told
Never know how these editors get the perfect clips.
Quentin, I said, if you and Elmore Leonard had a child, this is what this is.
He respected the material, and he wanted to use what he could, and he found out that he could use perhaps more than expected.
One of the things that I wanted to do is, you know, about 40% of this dialogue in Jackie Brown is Elmore Leonard's, and about 60% of it is mine. But it wasn't supposed to sound necessarily like mine. It had to work for his vernacular. You know, and I'm very happy that you can't tell what's what unless you're sitting there with the book and the script.
I know, but it's a lot of money. It's $500,000 all in Cabo. And more coming in.
Emboldened by the author's support, at the beginning of 1997, Quentin began casting the main.
I think Samuel L. Jackson got 7 N-words in a line in like 10 seconds.
Roles. Pam Grier was an obvious choice for him.
You know, she was in her mid-40s, even though she looks like she's in her mid-30s. A lot of people, if they were making a movie, they would just immediately change that to 32 or something like that. No, it's a big thing that she's in her mid-40s. She's a beautiful lady, which is part of the story, and she looks like she can handle anything. And I was trying to think of who that would be, and I go, well, Pam Grier kind of fits that bill. That would be pretty terrific.
He called me in for an audition for Pulp Fiction for the the role that Rosanna Arquette played, but they'd already hired Eric Stoltz. And I guess Quentin after a while said, he's not going to tell Pam to shut up. You know, is that maybe that just won't work. And he said, but we're going to work together one day. And I said, oh, yeah, right. Yeah, sure. You're going to go through the roof with this, and I'll be seeing you at premieres or something.
When the actress came to the audition, Quentin's office walls had been hung with her posters.
And I said, did you put these up because I was coming over? And he said, no, I was going to take them down because you were coming over.
I'd bet that except for possibly an afro, you look exactly the way you did at 29.
He has been a big fan, has had posters in his office, forever. He's been collecting them. And I didn't know I was a cult figure. He informed me.
It's okay. No, I forgive you.
She's so good. She's got so much energy, and she's vibrant, and she's tough when she wants to be, And yes, and her standing up against Samuel L. Jackson, that's the action in it. That's the story.
Is that what I think it is?
What do you think it is?
I think it's a gun pressed up against my dick.
Well, you thought right.
He also desperately wanted to work with Robert Forster.
He liked the rough, tough exploitation pictures, of which I certainly made a few contributions.
Walking the Edge, starring Robert Forster and Nancy Kwan. Coming soon to a theater near you.
I was always a big fan of his as an actor, and I've always liked his work a lot and wanted to work with him.
Some years ago, he sold a script to a guy I know, True Romance. And then when he sold him the script, he said, and this part goes to Robert Forster. Eventually, they took the movie away from this guy and sold it to Tony Scott, apparently, and Christopher Walken did the part.
Come again?
They met back in '91 when Robert came to audition for the part
Christopher Walken was definitely the right choice.
of Joe Cabot in Reservoir Dogs.
I had read for him about 5 years prior for Reservoir Dogs, and I thought I killed that audition.
But Tarantino chose Lawrence Tierney, while promising Forster that their paths would definitely cross. 6 years later, he met him at a restaurant.
The thing happened right here at this table. Over there walks in Quentin Tarantino.
And offered him a role which brought the actor his first Oscar nomination and resurrected his career.
And this guy gave me a gift, the size of which cannot be exaggerated.
It's weird that no nominations were given to De Niro, who played a very atypical role for himself.
Kind of funny how Bob got the script, because I wasn't 100% sure that he would respond to Lewis, and before I'd even built up the courage or whatever to send it his way, Harvey Weinstein had slipped it to him.
Yeah.
But it's really a character that's internal. It's a character where the characterization is all done through body language. But like the way the guy stands.
You all right out there?
Yeah.
The way he sits, all those kind of things. Well, that's one of the things that Robert De Niro does as well, if not better than anybody else. All right, is inhabiting a character through behavior.
Hey, don't say anything else, okay? Keep your mouth shut.
Or to Samuel L. Jackson, whose performance makes your blood run cold.
He just says Quentin's lines probably been better than anybody else alive.
Some kind of karmic meeting somewhere in there that when Quentin writes the stuff, it comes out of my mouth kind of naturally. My ass may be dumb, but I ain't no dumbass. I've never played a character that had no redeeming social qualities whatsoever until this guy. Ordell has no redeeming social qualities. He's charming, but he's so deadly and conniving, it's incredible. What the fuck that got to do with anything?
Take the scene with Chris Tucker, for example.
I'm sorry, man, but I ain't getting no goddamn trunk.
Samuel L. Jackson added a lot, I thought, to the part. In fact, there was a scene, one scene in particular, when the scene starts up on the balcony of an apartment house, and then they come down, and then they're standing by the trunk, and he wants them to get in the trunk. And they expanded on that scene from what it was in the book because they liked it.
And you said 10 minutes. Hey, motherfucker, you like to hit my goddamn head!
That's almost like a little movie unto itself. The critic of the New York Times, Elvis Mitchell, says, he goes like, I think that's your best work. I think the best thing you've ever done is the Beaumont section in Jackie Brown. I think that's your finest work.
As for Chris Tucker, soon after this small role in Tarantino's film, Tucker got famous, and for a time became one of the highest paid actors in the world.
It's a lot of food.
Oh man, Chris is amazing in the movie. Chris is great. Chris normally improvises his dialogue. And I remember when he came down to do rehearsal, he was like, normally I make my own shit up, but like, your shit's so good, I'm gonna like learn it. I'm gonna do it because your shit's good. Now, having said that, he completely did what I wrote and then just threw in a couple of lines that are the funniest lines in the piece. But my favorite line of that speech is like, you catch off guard with this shit. All right, I piss my pants every time he says that, all right? And I just threw that in.
Quentin often expressed his disappointment with the lack of nominations for Greer.
I really wanted Pam to be, like, the first black actress to ever win an Academy Award. And the fact that she didn't even get nominated,
Come on, this is getting silly now.
Oh, silly? You want to see some motherfucking silly? If I have to tell you to shut up one more time, I'm gonna shut you up.
By that time, Tarantino's ability to breathe new life into an actor's deflated career had become legendary. He was often interrogated about who he was going to save next.
People do come up to me, who are you gonna bring back next time? I go, I didn't just plug in John Travolta in any old role because I've always wanted to work with John Travolta. I'm trying to cast like the best actors or the coolest actors in whatever role, all right? And I'm just not using, the hot star list in order to do it. Pam Grier would be great in this, all right? Robert Forster would be great in this. I am fortunate enough to be in a situation that I can cast one of those
Yeah, it's going to get a copyright strike.
guys, all right? And give them that part, give them, the situation to shine and, show what they got.
Jackie Brown premiered on the 29th of December, 1997, and made $10 million the first weekend, while having a budget of only $12 million. In total, the picture made it to the $74 million mark. It wasn't the success of Pulp Fiction, but it wasn't a failure, though.
Jackie Brown is more of a modest movie than Pulp Fiction, and thus its grosses are going to be more of a modest variety, and so we do it for $12 million. We're going to end up doing very, very well with it.
In addition to the lack of nominations for Best Director and Best Screenplay, the less than exuberant reviews were what pulled the rug out from under him. He reacted aggressively to news headlines like, "The grossly overrated Tarantino," saying it was the press that had spent the last 5 years overestimating him in the first place.
I wasn't trying to blow your mind with Jackie Brown. I was trying to just dig deeper into character and entrench myself more. It's like the kind of thing, like if I had done
movie.
Jackie Brown when I was like 48, everyone was like, oh, look at this mature Tarantino. This is, he's maturing in such a, wonderful way as he's getting older. Well, I could do that, motherfucker, I could do that shit right after Pulp Fiction. I didn't need to get older to do that.
The violence is opera.
Photography equipment can be really expensive, so today I wanted to try this little experiment to see if I could get a colored gel look without having to spend a lot of money on gels. And so materials wise, I'm working with these colored folders that I found at Target, cut them up into strips and then just taped them on kind of sloppily, but that's okay. Because my theory is that if you put this on top of a flash, it should give you a pretty cool like colored lighting effect. And even though it is blizzarding out, I decided it'd be cool to maybe see if we could get some light reflection off of the snow. And honestly, it turned out a lot cooler than I had thought, and I can't wait to use this concept for a real like fashion editorial sometime down the line. And this proves yet again that it's not about gear, it's about your creativity and what you make of everything. Photography equipment can be really expensive, so today I wanted to try this little experiment to see if I could get a colored gel look without having to spend a lot of money.
So I put a photo up on Threads recently that kind of went nutso mode. It just did in crazy numbers. I think it's the most engaged photo I maybe put up on the platform. And so I thought this would be an interesting opportunity to break down how I approach photography. Some of you might even know me as more of a photographer than anything else, but I've never actually explained my process. So I thought this would be a cool excuse to talk about a little piece of kit that I've been playing with, and also how I get inspired to shoot cool photos. Buckle up. Like many of you, I just finished the second season of Severance, and I have been very vocal about how I just buckle up.
You say the second season?
Like many of you, I just finished the second season of Severance, and I have been very vocal about how I think it's one of the best looking shows made in a very long time. And part of my job is breaking down why those things look so good. So I went down a rabbit hole on Severance and the look of that show and what Jessica Lee Gagne and Ben Stiller were doing and the inspiration that they were drawing from. And I had my own hypothesis about what they were playing off of, and I confirmed that hypothesis because I found an interview with Jessica Lee Gagne who mentioned Alan J. Pakula movies. And probably the most notable example would be All the President's Men, which was shot by Gordon Willis. It is just so clear that Ben and Jessica were playing off of All the President's Men for Severance, especially because most of All the President's Men takes place in an office. And also, if you're a fan of David Fincher's Zodiac, this is the blueprint. All the President's Men is the blueprint for pretty much every newspaper office movie that you think looks good. It's because of Gordon Willis and Alan J. Pakula. I've kind of always approached my photography as trying to think of every frame as like a little scene from a movie. Like you could just pull a still from a movie. That's how I want my photography to feel. And so I don't really look at other photographs or other people's street photography and stuff like that. I'm always just looking at movies. And so Severance put me on that path to rewatch All the President's Men, which has always been one of my favorite movies, and just remember how damn good this movie looks. Willis is just so great at negative space. He's so good at using single point light sources, contrast, and shadows. And sometimes you can barely even see a person's face, which I love. I love how everything is just teal from those overhead fluorescent lights. I like that they're exposed for those lights too, which means everything just drapes to darkness and shadow. And so as soon as I saw this frame, I was like, I need to shoot something like this. I need to find something that looks even remotely close to this because I love it. So the next thing is, okay, what gear and what equipment do I need to accomplish a shot like this? This is the new 40mm T1.8 Sirui 1.33x anamorphic, and I'm actually shooting this video right now with the 20mm anamorphic with autofocus.
Love to get a... Don't even know what it's called. Lower aperture? Lower aperture lens. Mine's just 2.8. Love a 1.4. Aperture, yeah.
Focus, which is pretty damn cool if you ask me, because I can just pop this up here. Look at that, go into focus and back to me, which is nuts. I actually don't think we've talked about how insane it is that we have autofocus anamorphic lenses now, particularly for photography, which is why I think they're so great. Because I'm already trying to get these movie frames, anamorphic is a really easy way to get the movie look with a camera. And now that we have autofocus, it essentially makes any camera that you put these lenses on a point and shoot anamorphic cinema machine. So I had the lens, I threw it on my A7 IV. The next thing was to plan out a location. And I knew that I wanted these overhead fluorescent lights. So I thought, why don't I just go to a parking garage? And I was like, that's too similar. I can't just go shoot the exact same thing as that frame I'm looking at, because then I'm not learning anything. I'm not creating something new. I'm just mimicking. And short side tangent, I'm not a big fan of cinematic recreations that are note for note for that particular reason. I don't think you really learn anything about your taste. You just learn how to copy somebody. So to get inspired, it's better to look at stuff that you like and aesthetics and styles and apply it to something that you're creating for yourself. You're going to learn the same skills that it takes to recreate it note for note, but at least you've made something new and you're going to have a sense of ownership over that thing. The closest thing to a parking garage that is also quite different is a subway station. So I walked to a subway station with all this information in my head, all these old Gordon Willis frames and All the President's Men, and especially that one shot with the fluorescent lights. And I just started shooting. I didn't have a whole lot of intention when I was there. I just knew that at some point I wanted to try and get that shot. If it didn't happen, it didn't happen, not the end of the world, but at least I had some intention going into the session. This is what I'm trying to grab. And through the process of even just going for a walk with the setup, I found other frames that I was very happy with. And I just kept shooting and walking around. And then finally I went outside of a subway station and I saw the shot. I saw that it was possible to get the shot that I was looking for. The lights were in the right spot. I knew there was a frame here that was interesting, but it was missing one thing. I knew that it needed a person. It needed some sort of silhouette to break up that left side. And so I just waited. I stood there and I shot and I just kind of looked around and I waited for a guy to just start walking, and then I snapped, and there you have it. So getting the shot is like 80-90%. The next part is editing. And I'm gonna break down how I edited this photo right after this short break from today's sponsor, which is audio. This is my dog Beef. And when Beef needs high quality music for his projects, he likes to use audio. Isn't that right, Beef? Dude, say something. I know how difficult it can be to find good music for your videos, and audio makes it easier than ever. With Link Match, you can just pop in a track that you like, and it's gonna automatically find similar songs to the one that you're looking for. And it gets better. You can also use Hans AI, which means you just type in what you're looking for, and audio instantly pulls high quality tracks that match your vibe. But don't take Beef's word for it. Hit the link in the description and use the code Tommaso at checkout. You're gonna get 70% off your first year of a pro membership. Audio is not only affordable, they also have the coolest high quality features for creators looking for great music. Beef and I really appreciate audio sponsoring this video, and we really appreciate you for watching this video. Let's get back to it. All right, let's talk about editing. For me, editing is just the cherry on top. You can do a lot in editing, but it always has to start with a good frame. Everything that you want, the contrast, the light, the colors, they gotta be in that shot. So you need to focus on your composition, you need to focus on your production design and your locations. Even camera settings to me is kind of irrelevant. Shoot the thing in auto, it doesn't really matter. But all the stuff that you want, that feeling, has to be in the frame already. And what you're doing is just exemplifying it. You're just putting that cherry on top to give it a little more contrast, push the colors into a certain area that you'd like a little bit more, but you cannot polish a turd. Go out and shoot and get cool shit, and then make it look even a little bit more cooler when you bring it into the edit. So I edit all my photos in Lightroom, and essentially what I did was I just pulled up that shot from All the President's Men, and I tried to tweak my highlights and my white balance to match the tones of the teal that was coming from that fluorescent. And I just did some contrast, a little bit of shadow, some exposure stuff. I really like rich, inky blacks, and that's what I did in Lightroom. So it was a really easy, simple thing. I just don't want you to get caught in the weeds on the editing side of things. I want you to take from this video that you should go out and be inspired by things that you like and find those frames out in the real world. But there is one more thing that I did with this photo just to take a little bit of that digital edge off, give it a little bit more of that 70s Severance and All the President's Men feel, which is to pop it over into Resolve, throw some film box on there. It's going to give me a little bit of halation, a little bit of grain, and a little bit of that color film tone that I wanted. And so if what I did in Lightroom is the cherry on top, what I do in film box is the whipped cream. I have a far more in-depth video about film box on my main channel. I'll put a link in the description. So if you want to dive into that and understand why I use Resolve to edit photos as well, go watch that video. But ultimately this video, because of the response to this photo and just seeing how many people loved it, I wanted to just kind of demystify this idea that this stuff doesn't come out of thin air. You have to be inspired by things. It's okay to build upon stuff that you are into. Just don't copy everybody. And I know we are currently in a content market where it is very much
Helga.
Here we go.
Plateau.
Here we go.
SMG. Shuttle. SMG.
Fuck off. Fuck's sake.
SMG. Shotgun.
Yes. Checkpoint. Shit. hand's dead. Pull the trigger fucking 100 times a minute. With the rifle, at least.
So no matter where, when, how, or what you're shooting, any and everything can be cinematic. Let's talk about it.
Sure, let's talk about it. See it? What's that not showing up for? Refresh.
So no matter where, when, how, or what you're shooting, any and everything can be cinematic. Let's talk about it.
Wakey wake eggs and bakey out. Jeez, much fucking pepper. It's a lot of pepper.
All right, so what is the deal, everybody? It is, of
Pepper
course, your
Jack
boy
loves
Valandis
Fraggle Rock.
back with yet another video. And in today's video, I thought maybe we'd sit down and talk about why everything and anything can be cinematic if you want it to be. And now I get it. The word cinematic is overused within this space, and that word bothers a lot of people. When I go out to shoot and film, whether that's in my home, in somebody else's home, out in the field, the only thing that's on my mind is how cinematic can I make this look? We tend to focus on the very obvious and very clear cinematic scenes that we see within movies, like the dark rooms with the half-lit face and very beautiful lighting, and it's shot wide open. We tend to focus on that a lot, but if you watch any movie or any video here shot on YouTube, you notice that there are sequences that we don't really necessarily pay too much attention to, but they are also still very cinematic. And I'm here to tell you that anything can be cinematic, whether that's cleaning your toilet, lighting a candle, pouring a bowl of cereal, making breakfast, pouring up a drink. No matter what it is, it can be cinematic if you consider a few things. So despite popular belief, some people may think that shooting everything wide open immediately makes everything more cinematic. And in some cases that is true, and I'm all for people doing whatever they want. So if that's what people believe is going to make a shot cinematic, then by all means, do that. But I'm here to tell you that something can be cinematic no matter what aperture you shoot it at, no matter what lens you shoot it on, no matter what camera you shoot it on. But to me, those are probably the least interesting and important things when it comes to making something cinematic. The things that I go based on in terms of cinematics is lighting, composition, and honestly sound design. So lighting, number one, to me, probably the most important thing when it comes to making something cinematic. And that's because lighting adds depth, a sense of emotion, and it makes for a more interesting shot depending on how the lighting is. If you guys follow this channel closely, you know that I've made many videos talking about lighting. I use natural light for a lot of my videos, so you don't necessarily need any lights to make something cinematic or something beautiful, because all of these videos and even the videos that I've showed you in this video were all shot with just natural light. It's all about finding light and setting yourself or your subject within that light. If you watch my lighting video with natural light, you know that I talked about something called a cinematic triangle. If you didn't see that video, I'll link it, but a cinematic triangle is basically just placing your subject in between your light and your camera. And this cinematic triangle doesn't have to be done within everything that you do to make it cinematic, but to me, I try to do this as many times as I can, and more often than not, because to me that feels the most cinematic when I'm making videos. I think it adds a little bit more depth and just makes things look really, really good in terms of shadows and light areas of your image. Because to me, the light and dark parts of your image is what makes something cinematic. So yeah, working with light and learning light is probably one of the most important things in terms of making something cinematic. And you don't need lights. You can use natural light like the sun. It's all about learning how to work with that and learning where it is and where it's going and how it lights spaces and not faces. So yeah, right now I'm learning a lot on how to work with artificial lighting because I want to start doing more creative things and using the light to my advantage to light things how I want them to be lit specifically. So yeah, it's super fun and I'm learning a lot of stuff. But yeah, lighting is super important, probably the most important thing when trying to make something cinematic. Next thing that I want to talk about is compositions. Again, if you've been following this channel for a minute, you know that, again, compositions is one of my favorite things to talk about and one of my favorite things to kind of play with. It's very easy to just walk into a room or walk outside and pick up a camera and point it at something. And not every single composition you do has to be interesting or this super creative thing that nobody has ever thought of. I do very regular compositions all the time, and I think sometimes people overcomplicate trying to make something look cool and cinematic and interesting. When I'm shooting with myself or other people or any subject for that matter, always trying to find compositions, even if they're real regular, that adds depth to that image. For example, there's a reason why I shoot these YouTube videos sitting right here in this chair and not over there on that couch, because as you can see in this example, there's depth to this image. The lighting, like I said, the cinematic triangle is happening right now. There's some depth, there's things behind me, there's some foreground with the mic. There's a lot of things going on that makes this composition not super interesting, but at least it's pleasing to look at. But I set this up here because there's a lot of leading lines leading your eyes directly to me. Like these pictures back here, they all lead right to my head. These ones lead right to my head. And to me, that makes the most sense for making videos in this office. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people may try to get away with terrible compositions by shooting something at a very low aperture, which is also fine. I'm a big fan of things being shot at a low aperture. I don't do that. Probably 75% of the time I'm shooting at f4, f5.6 and higher. I rarely shoot at the lowest aperture my lens can go, because if you understand aperture and you understand some of these lenses, you can get the same bokeh and same out of focus parts depending on how your compositions are set up. And again, like I said, there's nothing wrong with shooting at a wide aperture. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I wish people would stop acting like this, like that's a big deal, because at the end of the day, who cares? If it's not your film or your videos, then why bother? But yeah, finding compositions and setting up compositions is probably one of the most interesting and fun things that I do within these videos and my videos in general. It's probably my favorite thing to do. And like I said, I'm a real simple man. A lot of things can be very, very simple. We don't need to overcomplicate compositions. We don't need to overcomplicate lighting, because it's okay to do things exactly as how you're, I guess, supposed to do them. Another thing that makes images in anything cinematic is camera movement. I won't talk too much about that. Again, I have a video on camera movement, but camera movements and the way the camera moves with subjects and throughout scenes, clearly those things add to the cinematics of something. I'm not going to talk about that a lot in this video because I make all these videos by myself with the camera being on a tripod, but just because something is on a tripod and the camera isn't moving doesn't mean it's not cinematic. So, but yeah, to me, the last thing that makes something very cinematic is the sound design. When I first started making videos and getting into like filmmaking and stuff like that, sound design was probably the last thing on my mind. To me, my camera had a microphone on it, and in my mind, that was decently good, so I didn't necessarily care about sound design. But as I started getting more into filmmaking and doing these videos and stuff, I've realized that sound design is actually very, very important. In some of these videos, I don't know if you guys have noticed it before, but some of the sounds that are throughout some of these videos aren't even real. Well, they're real sounds, I just didn't make them. For example, originally this scene sounded like this. But to me, once that's taken away and some more professional sounding outside noises are added, a lighter flick is added, a little ruffle of the jacket is added, then some of these things start looking better because they sound better, if that makes sense. I do record most of these sounds on my own with a boom mic, but for the sounds that I can't get, I go to Epidemic Sound, which this video is not sponsored by Epidemic Sound, but I do go to Epidemic Sound to get a lot of my sound effects for these videos. In recent videos, whether that was me riding a bike or my homie listening to the Walkman or the record player or whatever it may be, all of these sounds were added to add to the cinematics of all of these videos.
What's that called?
Record player or whatever, a bike effects for the Epidemic Sound, which this video is not sponsored by Epidemic Sound, but I do go to Epidemic Sound to get a lot of my sound effects for these videos. In recent videos, whether that was me riding a bike or my homie listening to the Walkman or the record player or whatever it may be, all of these sounds were added to add to the cinematics of all of these videos. And I think audio and sound design may be a second thought or last thought with a lot of filmmakers, but I will say that adding that stuff in and like kind of paying attention to that and taking just like the extra time to add those sounds in will change a lot of your videos. But even with big Hollywood films and movies and short films, they also add sounds to make their movies more cinematic. And if you really pay attention, you could probably spot a few times where they added a sound and it wasn't an actual sound. But yeah, man, it's not hard to make something cinematic. And like I said, anything and everything can be cinematic if you just take the time out to, you know, slow down and think about some things a little bit further than just like picking up your camera and shooting something. So yeah, with that being said, that's probably gonna wrap up this video. I appreciate you guys sticking around, listening to me talk. Always appreciate it. You guys are the best. With that being said, I'm gonna get up out of here and I'm gonna go do some shit, man. I'm gonna see y'all in the next one, man. Let's go do some shit. You know the vibes. Let's get it.
Yep. Not a real smoker.
Somewhere along the way, we started to think cinematic just meant blurry backgrounds and shallow depth. But some of the most powerful images don't hide anything. They show everything. And that's deep focus. When the whole frame, foreground, background, all of it is in sharp focus. It's not just a setting on your lens, it's a mindset. It gives the audience freedom to look around, to feel tension, and to find details that matter. And this video is about that. About slowing down, shooting stop down, and learning how to make every inch of your image count. Not just what's in focus, but why it's in focus. And this is shooting apertures effectively. Alright, so hello. Hi. How's everybody out there doing today? It is of course your boy Volandis back with another video. And before we get this video started, I did just want to say that I did make a Patreon. I am beyond grateful for the love and support into the channel or into filmmaking in general. And I definitely want to do more behind the scenes and more teaching, and when I feel of that. And honestly, in this video, we're talking about deep focus and why shooting everything wide open isn't always the best way to shoot. Now, me personally, I used to shoot everything wide open. I had a 24mm f1.4, and I don't think that lens ever came out of 1.4. And the reason why I wanted to speak on this and make this video is because recently I just shot an ad, short film, commercial type thing called You Got the Coke as a way to showcase these new lenses that I'm making a video on. But when I went out to go shoot with these lenses, I realized I don't have ND filters that fit the filter thread for these lenses. And FX3 clearly doesn't have built-in ND filters, so I was kind of forced to use higher apertures and deeper focus. But something that I did a couple years ago was go out and shoot without ND filters, so I can force myself to use other apertures. And I did this for quite a minute and quite a while until it kind of became second nature to just shoot at other apertures. And I know to some people not shooting wide open kind of just comes naturally, but I will say that when you develop a habit, it is very hard to break that habit, especially when that habit is your comfortability. And for me, seeing things shot wide open, especially my work, always felt like a sense of this is what looks right. This is what my work is supposed to look like. This looks cinematic, because for some reason we always associate a shallow depth of field with it being cinematic. If you don't believe me, talk to anyone with an iPhone who has cinematic mode. So deep focus, for anybody who doesn't know what deep focus is, it's essentially when everything in the frame from the foreground to the background stays sharp and in focus. And for me, it's not just a technical setting, it's personally a storytelling tool in my opinion, because it lets the viewer see everything that's happening in the scene and not just the subject. And some directors use it to create tension, show relationships between characters and their environment, or just letting a moment play out without forcing the viewer where to look. Some of my favorite directors ever, like Akira Kurosawa, Terrence Malick, and Andrei Tarkovsky, hopefully I said that right, they all make films using a deeper focus, and they're just amazingly beautiful films. Even with David Fincher, he likes to shoot at f4 or f5.6 because it reflects his obsession with precision and perfectness. Because with him, every frame is perfectly composed and everything in the frame of his frames tell a story and they're there on purpose, which is something I've tried to start doing and implementing in the work that I make. Because to me, shooting stop down kind of forces you to slow down and to notice. It's less about isolating a moment and more about witnessing the entire scene. You're not trying to hide anything from the audience. You feel more grounded and more responsible for what you're showing because every corner of the frame says something. And you're no longer relying on blur to guide the eye. You're composing, you're balancing tension, you're making the viewer choose where to look. It feels less like dreaming and more like remembering, more documenting and less fantasy, more human and less aesthetic. Some things that I've done and implemented personally within the work that I make to kind of work on not shooting at a wider aperture was one already I said is shooting with no ND filters, but something else that I do is practice layered compositions. I find locations with foreground, a midground, and a background. And that can be an alley, it could be a cafe. And at 5.6 to f11, all those layers will still stay in play. And it's just your job to frame the subject and to build a frame where everything contributes. If you start focusing on your lighting and compositions and the stories that's being told, then I think just naturally you start to want to see more things within your frame. I also think that shooting stop down just forces you to think different. It forces you to pay attention to all the details. It also stopped me from kind of just being lazy and placing my subject anywhere and just being like, here, stand here, because I know that the background doesn't necessarily matter that much because it's not going to be fully in focus. Now, a lot of people don't know that you can get the same exact or similar look of something being shot wide open if you can control depth and you know how depth works. You can shoot at 5.6 or f4 or even f8 and still get a out of focus background that does the trick, and you can even see more in the background, which in my opinion looks better. You want your scenes to blend together and not be mushed together, because shooting wide open sometimes is called for and it serves its purpose. But when you're shooting every single scene wide open, it's kind of harder to get a sense of the story. Where you are and what's happening kind of feels like it's getting lost in that sauce, which is that wide open aperture. But for me, of the story, where you are and what's happening kind of feels like it's getting lost in that sauce, which is that wide open aperture. But for me, I've personally always cared about the background and what's in the background of my images. So honestly, early on, like, it didn't take me that long to start shooting at different apertures because I started taking what I like to call environmental portraiture. And for me, the environment in which someone is in is just as important as the subject themselves, because I feel like that helps tell the overall story, especially the subjects that I usually take pictures of, or the stories that I'm trying to tell of my subjects. Where they are is probably more important in some cases. And honestly, I think that shooting on film, and when I started shooting on film, it kind of became a no-brainer to start using all the apertures on my lenses. But once you start seeing the entire frame, you realize there is more story to tell. Also, when you stop shooting wide open, you realize that other apertures have their purpose as well. Something that I love about shooting at f16 and higher is that it creates these flares when you point it directly at a light, especially the sun. A flare that you can't get at a lower aperture like 1.4 or even 5.6 to f11. And this is something that's super unique to shooting at a deeper focus. And naturally, it's a lot harder to keep things in focus when you're shooting at a super wide aperture. So if you're moving around or following a subject, it's a lot harder to keep that subject in focus. Also, every lens ever made has an aperture that it is best at. And it's usually not the wide open aperture. For example, this lens goes down to 1.5. And I'm gonna tell you right now that I couldn't imagine shooting at 1.5 on this lens. But I'm sure the sweet spot for this lens is probably f4 or f5.6. I'll talk more about these lenses and all of that stuff in the video that I make for them. But yeah, just every lens has its aperture that is, again, best at. But anyway, yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about because I thought it was interesting. And honestly, when I first started photography and filmmaking, I guess people were talking about it, but never really in depth like this. Mitchell Brinker, who made a similar video to this, which is really good. I'll also link that in the description below. But he also made a video and added some really good context about why shooting wide open isn't always the best for making videos. But anyway, with that being said, that's really all I wanted to talk about. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, I'm not talking to you because you already did what you had to do. But with that being said, I'm gonna get up out of here, go do some shit. Again, if you can and if you want to, hit the link in the description, go check out the Patreon. There's currently nothing on there, but starting next week, we're gonna be getting videos up and running and getting it together. So just getting the groundwork in right now. So anyway, with that being said, let's get out of here. Let's go do some shit, man. You know the vibes. Let's get it.
Every single time somebody watches one of your YouTube videos, they decide, keep watching or click off. The scriptwriting gurus will tell you the difference is in the specific words that you choose. But what most people miss is the power of how you speak. Because if you can't speak confidently and authentically in a way that builds connection with your audience, no one's going to stick around, even if you have the perfect script. So in this video, I want to show you the 5 mistakes that are quietly destroying your speaking and what to do instead. So the first mistake is breaking the coffee shop rule. And when my clients make this simple shift, it transforms the way they show up on camera. So imagine that you're in a cafe. You've just sat down, you've got your coffee in front of you, and you're sitting opposite one of your good friends. And he starts talking. Hi, I've discovered 3 really important things that you need to know. Your eyes are looking left and right, and you're hatching an escape plan to get away from this person. And that's because no one would ever speak like this in a coffee shop. Now imagine this exact same moment. Same friend, same coffee in hand, and instead, he starts talking to you and says, hey mate, I've discovered 3 really important things that you need to know. Immediately you're listening, you feel connected, it feels like a conversation, you're interested in what he has to say. And that is the coffee shop rule. If it feels weird to say it to a friend like that who's sitting across the table from you, it's gonna feel weird on camera too. So when you're speaking to camera, do a quick coffee shop check. Do a couple of reps where you talk to the camera and think, would I actually talk like this to a friend in a cafe? And if not, adjust your tone until it feels right, until it feels connected. Now, this next mistake absolutely obliterates any connection that you're trying to build with your audience, and it's called perfecting versus connecting. Now, when I was a young, free, single man in my early 20s, I would go on dates, and my default would be to try and impress the girls. I would just have this bad mindset where I would assume that they were sort of weighing me up and judging me, and so I would try to do my best to be perfect and to impress them. And this led to a lot of failed dates, until I switched my mindset and decided that I was purely just going to focus on connecting with them. And as soon as I made that shift from their eyes on me and me being judged to actually I'm just going to connect with this person in front of me, suddenly everything started going a lot better. This exact same shift can be applied to speaking on camera. And more than going on dates, when you are on camera, it feels like the whole world is watching you. That's why everyone freezes up and starts talking like a deer in the headlights, because it feels like the internet is watching you. It's very scary. And so instead of feeling that judgment and then trying to be perfect, you need to focus on connection. Because as soon as you're trying to be perfect, it's going to kill connection. Like, how would I try and present right now if I was trying to be perfect? I don't even know what I would do. I'd be very stiff, trying to get everything right, and you wouldn't feel connected with me. Instead, I'm imagining you on the other side, and I'm going for a connected vibe. And more than focusing on your outer habits like your hand gestures and eye contact, which are important, this inner mindset will naturally ripple through to your outer gestures. So this is a big one, don't forget it, and it will help when you go on dates as well. Thank me later. Mistake number 3 is something that I like to call emotional spaghetti. There's nothing that confuses your audience more than not knowing how you want them to feel. So a little while ago, I was reviewing some of my clients' videos, and when I was watching one of them, I couldn't quite decide what was off, but there was something. There's something about it that I was like, this isn't gonna work. The title and the framing of the video was something like how to be more confident and break past your blocks or something like that. And they went into this story about how their upbringing was hard and their family life was hard and this kind of stuff. So great job being vulnerable. But then I realized about 3 minutes in, I was like, as they're making this video, they don't actually know how they want me to feel. And I was confused. I was like, is this an inspirational video where I'm gonna learn something and I'm gonna be inspired by the end? Or is this actually a video where they're really opening up and maybe they're talking about something that they haven't actually processed yet? And it's more of a sort of a cry for help. And it turns out that they didn't know either. They were just sort of making the video going in blind. Now, this causes a real disconnect with the audience because they need to feel safe and relaxed that you can hold their hand through watching your video. So hopefully, as you're watching this right now, you feel like I have a plan, I have something clear to say, and you're going to learn something. And the kind of vibe that I'm trying to transmit is that you can do this is easier than you think, and hopefully you're going to leave feeling quite inspired. But if you came across a video where the creator didn't quite know how they wanted you to feel, you'd very likely click off straight away. So the fix here is knowing the feeling that you want to transmit, that you want your audience to leave your video from, and know that from the start. So before you make your video, decide on how you want your audience to feel. Do you want them to feel inspired, motivated, uplifted, whatever that is? Keep that in mind as you start your video, and you're going to hit the ground running. Mistake number 4 is having all points and no paint. Not knowing if your content is actually landing with your audience or not is a huge killer for your own confidence when you're speaking. You just want to end every sentence with, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? This is because we don't have anyone nodding along and telling us, yeah, great, cool, this makes sense, and we're just sort of talking into the void. And if you make this mistake, it will also prevent people from following along, which causes them to click off. So to illustrate this, I'm going to explain the same point in 2 very different ways. Here's the first way. Machine learning is a method of training algorithms on databases to detect patterns and make predictions, versus this. Machine learning is like teaching a small child what a dog is. You don't show them the rule book of this is what a dog's leg and tail looks like. Instead, you just show them thousands of dogs until they learn to recognize one. So when I explained it the first time, you probably completely zoned out and just went over your head. But in this second example, I'd bet that you knew instinctively what I was talking about because I was using an analogy, which was something that you already knew about. And when I put that new information on something that you already knew, that's when the click happened. So instead of just making a point, you need to use paint to fill in the points. And the paint is analogies, metaphors, stories, or examples. So to illustrate and paint in every single point that you make, you want to use one of these devices so you know that your points are landing. Mistake number 5 is going in cold. And this mistake
If you look at your life and see a graveyard of half-finished projects, a guitar in the corner, a half-coated website, a set of baking tools, and a sudden urge to learn jujitsu, you probably feel a very specific type of shame. Society has a word for you: dilettante. They tell you that you are chaotic or that you lack the grit to specialize. You feel like an imposter because you can't just pick one lane and stay in it. You might even know the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none, and you use it to beat yourself up. But you are forgetting the rest of the quote. The full quote is, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. Psychology suggests that this feeling of being scattered isn't a defect. It is a symptom of a highly adaptive nervous system. You aren't failing to specialize. You are unconsciously building a rare cognitive architecture known as the M-shaped mind. While the world tells you to focus, your brain is trying to prepare you for a future where hyper-specialization is actually a liability. Before we break down why your chaos is actually a survival strategy, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And if you love deep psychology like this, check out my newsletter community after watching, linked in the description. To understand why you feel this anxiety, we have to look at the lie you were sold. For the last century, the world was an I-shaped game. It rewarded people who dug one hole a mile deep. It was a kind learning environment like golf where the rules never changed. If you practiced your swing for 10,000 hours, you won. But you don't live in a kind environment. Your brain instinctively knows that the modern world is a wicked environment. The rules change every day. In a wicked environment, the specialist is fragile. If the industry changes, they are obsolete. Because of this, you naturally drift. One year you are obsessed with electrical wiring and HVAC systems, and the next you are deep into yoga, heavy lifting, and DJing rave music. To an outsider, this looks like a chaotic personality. They might call you strange or unfocused. But what you are actually doing is gathering data points from disparate domains. This is where the magic happens. Psychology calls this far transfer. The specialist uses near transfer. They solve problems they have seen before using the same old tools. But you use far transfer. You take a concept from one completely unrelated field and apply it to another. Think about the web developer who used to be a beekeeper and a farmer. On paper, those things have nothing to do with coding, but that agricultural experience allows them to understand organic systems and growth cycles in a way that a specialist coder who only stares at screens could never grasp. They aren't just writing code. They are cultivating an ecosystem. That is far transfer. That is innovation. You feel like an imposter because you aren't the best at any one thing. But you are failing to see that your value isn't in your depth, it's in your synthesis. Now, understanding that your curiosity is a superpower is a great relief, but it doesn't solve the immediate crushing problem, the burnout and the feeling of being behind in life. You see people your age becoming senior vice presidents or lead engineers, and you feel like you're still at the starting line because you keep switching tracks. This happens because you are misunderstanding the geometry of your own potential. You aren't T-shaped, general knowledge with one specialty. You are M-shaped. An M-shaped person has multiple pillars of depth connected by a bridge of curiosity. But here is the trap. You cannot build all the pillars of the M at the same time. If you try to learn data science, write a novel, and start a business all in the same month, you will collapse. The people who successfully navigate this life, the true polymaths, practice what we call serial mastery. You have to view your life in seasons. You might spend your 20s obsessing over music and art. Then, in your 30s, you pivot to programming to pay the bills. You didn't quit art, you just finished that season of construction. I saw a story of a 53-year-old who finally found peace with this. He realized he couldn't choose art over programming. So, he let programming be the pillar that paid the bills while music, philosophy, and game design flourished as the other pillars on nights and weekends. He denied high-demand team lead positions to keep his work week at 30 hours. He protected his psychic energy. He didn't try to merge them all instantly. He let them exist sequentially, and eventually they all merged into his own personal video game projects. That is the M shape in action. There is one final psychological trait you have that makes you bulletproof, and it comes from evolutionary biology. It's called redundancy. In nature, redundancy is a strength, not a waste. Elephants rarely get cancer because they have massive genetic redundancy, multiple copies of the same cancer-fighting gene. If one fails, another takes over. Your chaotic interests are your redundancy. If you are just a specialist software engineer and AI takes your job, you are terrified. But if you are a software engineer who also knows how to do electrical wiring, fix HVAC motors, and teach English, you are unbreakable. You haven't been wasting your time dabbling. You have been engaging in strategic adaptability. You have been building a safety net of skills that ensures no matter what happens to the economy, or technology, or the job market, you have a pivot ready. So, stop apologizing for your graveyard of hobbies. Those weren't failures. They were semesters in the university of your own making. You were never meant to be just one thing. You were built to be the bridge between worlds that others can't even see. If you are ready to embrace your M-shaped future, drop a heart emoji in the comments to show you're putting it all together. And if you want the deep dive research on how to structure your seasons, subscribe and check out the newsletter community in the description.
Well, that's me. Economics assignment for tomorrow.